as you all know, it's been quite an extraordinary conference so far. And having attended many conferences over the years in many different venues and with many different formats, my own experience is that it's very difficult to sustain a high quality participation and high quality content over a day, 2 days. But I think what's remarkable about this conference so far is that we've had very good discussions, very high quality engagement with the audience, and I'm very happy to say it's going to get even better now, because we have an extraordinary panel of very distinguished people with very long years of experience in their own countries as well as globally. But we are also very fortunate this evening to have Srimati Sushma Swaraji, our External Affairs Minister, who's sitting right here in the front row. We are very, very grateful for her to having come down from Delhi to attend the conference, and we'll be hearing from her later. And of course, we have Madam Mridula Sinha, Srimati Mridula Sinha, who's the Governor of Goa. Thank you, Srimati Mridula Sinha ji, for attending this evening as well. We'll have each of the panelists come up and speak for 8 or 10 minutes, and I think they'll give us a very interesting set of perspectives. So with that, I'll sit down and I'll ask our first panelist, Dr. Al-Majali, to come up and to give his talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Moderator, Your Excellency, the Foreign Minister of India, Your Excellency, the Governor of Goa, my dearest panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be in this gathering of intellectuals, decision makers, scientists from different countries to come together for the sake of the world, the global outlook. Let me start by thanking all the organizers, Foundation of India, or India Foundation, and to my friend Shri Shankar for their kind invitation to come and be with you this afternoon. Now I start by saying, what is the purpose of dialogue? Dialogue of civilization. Dialogue to achieve what? Let me propose an answer. And then, after we exchange views, we may find a better answer. Firstly, developing dialogue contributes to the creation of political education enriched with pluralism and based on a humane and ethical system. Secondly, intercivilizational dialogue does not mean the eradication of one civilization by another or abandoning the particular qualities that each civilization has and is identified with. Thirdly, a sound and successful intercivilization dialogue must be based on respecting the others and appreciating that the other could be different. A civilization is a living organism. Within the organism, renewal and decay coexist. When the forces of renewal are dominant, a civilization prospers. When the forces of decay take over, a civilization falls. Like a wave, a civilization is subject to opposing forces. A civilization's rise when certain universal attributes favor its formation. A wave dissolves into turbulence when the favorable conditions disappear. Civilization decay when the favorable attribute disappear. There are a host of theories about the narrative depicting the rise and fall of civilization. The great scholar Ibn Khaldun is a father of one. Ibn Khaldun theory has universal application that civilization decay from within. Upright action fosters mutual support and sustain a civilization. Vices destroy civilization as civilizations are overrun by other civilizations which are more cohesive and virile. The process repeats itself. Once a civilization begins to decay, must it not necessarily fall prey to outside forces? Ibn Khaldun theory leaves the door open for discussion. There are other theories for the rise and fall of civilization, those of Toynbee, Adams, Hegel, Marx. Toynbee's challenge and response is a further development of cause and effect. Brooks Adams saw economic power as the driving force for the formation of civilization. Hegel, dialectic, found a concrete expression in the material dialectic of Marx and Hegel. By contrast, the approach to the rise and fall of civilization is based on a theory of renewal. A great civilization is based on faith. Faith provides a reservoir of energy for the civilization to renew itself from within as it faces the vicissitudes of time. Civilizations that endure have the capacity for renewal. Those that do not disappear. Civilization is like an engine that runs on 4 cylinders: justice, mutual support, perseverance, and righteous action. Faith is the fuel that powers all of these cylinders. Faith is not only the cement, the glue that holds civilization together, but is also the reservoir that a great civilization dives into for renewal. Faith fosters righteous action which alone propel a civilization forward. Take the faith away, a civilization collapses into dust. Such a civilization does not endure. It is overwhelmed by vicissitude of time. Ibn Khaldun was also the father of leadership studies. He was a promoter of the concept of leadership. He reiterated that we need leadership. He said that leadership exists through a strong, dynamic bond between leaders and led. A basic qualification for a good leader, according to Ibn Khaldun, is that he or she should be willing to respect others. This creates solidarity between leaders and led, between head and body. There is a big distinction between leadership and domination. Civilization fails when leaders become dominators. That surely provides a message for world leaders, particularly in the most powerful countries of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, before sharing some other views on leadership, let me address the concept of faith. In my preceding argument, which I mentioned, let me identify some common grounds. Religion tells us where and how to find our common ground. Muhammad says, treat others in the same way you like them to treat you. Jesus said, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself." Two different religions which teach the same attitude towards others. Treat others, leaders, governments, institutions, etc., as you wish them to be treated. The same argument applies also to ethics. Ethics are common to all religions. Buddhism tells us every living being has the same basic wish to be happy and to avoid suffering. When we talk of interreligious dialogue, we surely talk of dialogue among the followers of the various religions. But what does that actually mean? Some have defined faith as the belief in certain doctrines based on spiritual convictions. To me, faith is essentially an amalgamation of rituals, laws, and values. A dialogue between the followers of different faiths should not be about rituals or how we individually interact with God, or pray, or whether we go to a mosque, a church, or a temple, or a synagogue. Nor should it be about laws or teaching for those who are universal and universally accepted. It should be about values. Values of justice, equality, respect for human rights, and freedom. This is the core of the matter. By focusing on values, we set out to search for common grounds that helps to humanize rather than demonize the other. The question, therefore, arises as to how to restore the contradiction between being a national and an international leader when the national interest comes up against global interest. Personally, I do not think there is any contradiction. I believe it is just the person himself, how he does look at it. By putting public interest before personal interest, one can survive as a national as well as an international leader. Human rights, for example, needs our attention. In such a way, there are many ways of addressing human rights, vertically and horizontally, within a community, a country, a region, and the world as a whole. Dialogue must take place between the leaders and the led, between the leaders of the world and their led. In all civilization, we need human solidarity. I believe this has not happened yet enough. Taking a leaf from the Book of Human Rights, I can say that we need a universal declaration of ethics. Such an effort could be a forum to bring politicians and religious leaders together for the sake of humanity, to lay an ethics foundation for all in decision-making, whether in the religious field or in the politics. Yet today, we find, and indeed internationally, we are facing what has rightly called hate speech. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, let me now turn to leadership and ask the question, where do we go to get leaders? Leadership is vision and decision and follow-up. Vision without decision does not work. Decision without vision does not work, and both will not last if follow-up is not there. We need young leaders to be trained to become leaders. And here, let me try to give you two experiences of mine. I was at one time, in fact, 14 years as a president of the University of Jordan, and believing in leadership and potential leadership, I thought of the following, and I say it very quickly, that every year, I picked the top 3 students from every department in the university. At the time, we had 60, so 180, and I would have a team of 3 deans to meet with them and talk with them to try to discover who has or she has the capability of being a leader in its own way, in her own or his own way. And to pick only 30, but they should be 1 or more from each faculty of the university. In other words, 1 or more medical, 1 or more nurse, dentistry, Islamic law, arts, science, engineer, agriculture, etc. The varieties. These 30 people is being arranged for them to meet with the decision maker in Jordan. The king, the crown prince, the prime minister, the foreign minister, the minister of education, governor of the bank, commander of the army, ambassador of India, ambassador of the United States, etc., for 3 hours, just to expose them to each other. Just let them listen to what these people talk and discuss with them what they're talking about. And in winter, I used to send them to an Arab state to meet with the leadership of that state for 2 weeks. And in summer, I used to send them to Europe to meet with the leadership in any given country. Twice they went to the United Kingdom, and Prince Philip, the husband of Her Majesty the Queen, meet them in Buckingham Palace for 3 hours every time I send these people. Now, this is the idea, is to have interaction of mind between these people, potential leader from all walks of life, from all professions, not political, not army, not this, not that, and so on and so forth. These people will talk to their peers in the university, so the word goes on. And the whole idea is expose, don't impose. Expose, don't impose. People, especially those who think they are leaders, do not accept dictation to them all the time. And the traditional teaching in our universities is mainly dictating. And I believe in non-traditional way of exposing these people because their task is going to be different. Now, it happened that I served as a chairman and a member of the United Nations University in Tokyo for about 14 years. And I suggested to them, saying that any nation in the world have a university as one way of training their future leaders. The United Nations University should be the place where you can train leaders with a global outlook. And the idea is to invite every state in the world to send you 5 people, for instance, from different walks of life. In other words, from foreign affairs, first secretary, second secretary, from the army, lieutenant colonel, from the academic, assistant professor, etc., rabbi, sheikh, priest, etc., from different walks of life and different professions, whom they believe that they have a future to become leaders. So just imagine about 200 people from all walks of life, from all different professions, to meet together and interact with each other, talk with each other. And then to bring, say, 10 leaders from the world to talk to them and interact with them. And then to group the world into 19 groups. Each group, 10 states. 10 states, 2 from Asia, 2 from the Arab world, 2 from Europe, 2 from Africa, 2 from America. And in this group, you put all shades, big country, small country, rich country, poor country, Buddhist country, Muslim country, Christian country, etc. And send each group to 10 states to visit the leaders of that state for at least 1 week. Now, these people travel together. They talk with each other. They get different experience. If they come to India, they're going to eat Indian food. They're going to meet with the leadership of India. They're going to see what's the industry in India, and so on. They're going to see the poor and the rich and so on. But it is their first impression. It goes in their head. So when they finish, each group to visit 10 states in the world, they return to base, and each group will make a briefing, what they have heard, what they have seen, and what do they think, and it goes in a book we distribute it to the world. The idea is expose, not impose. The idea is to put present leaders in the world under training, because when the king and the crown prince and the ministers meet with these people and interact with them, they're going to compare notes. And now comparing notes and exposing them to the aspiration of the young from all over the world, they're going to learn something. Not the king alone or the queen alone or the president or any alone, the whole lot they will be touched. These young people in 20 years from now, they are the leaders. They are the presidents. They are the president of university. They are the commanders of the army. They are. But they know each other, and they have been exposed directly to the problems of the different nations. So the world, I hope, will be better then. Just before I close, I attended this morning a session about women. And I'll just say very few words about what I believe about women in this world. In 1972, when I was a president, I established one of the things is a college of nursing in the University of Jordan. And I asked myself, what is the best relation I like to see between the doctor, the nurse, and the patient? The answer came straight away. It is the same good relation, best relation between father, mother, and the child. But when we look at this relation, through history, man at home is the boss. Women at home, mainly maids, and sometimes they please the father on the expense of the child. In medicine, it is the same. I am a doctor and I know this. Doctors are the dictators. They are the bosses of the profession. The nurses are mainly maids. Sometimes they please the doctor on the expense of the child, of the patient. So this is nearly the same. So I asked the question, why is it? Is it the man's muscles make him boss at home? Maybe a little. Sometimes a woman is more strong than a man physically. And is it money? Again, sometimes the lady has more money than the man himself. It is education. And what I mean by education, not to go to a formal school and get the degree. Education is interaction of mind. A driver takes passengers with him. Sometimes they're wearing this, sometimes they're wearing like Hindu or this and that. Women, they talk the language, what they have discussed. It is knowledge. So the whole day he is learning. He goes home, she's cooking, and she's only with the children. So he tells her what is going on. So she thinks he's a big do. And he accepts her as a lower echelon. In medicine, the same. To study medicine, you have to be top in high school. You have to have 7 years of medicine, 2-3 years of specialist. So you are so big. While nurses, they used to take them from the 6th floor of 6th grade, and 6 months, and they are nurses. So in other words, the doctor has so much knowledge, she has so little knowledge, so she accepts him as a boss, he accepts her as a slave or as a maid. So if we change this type of education, and we educate nurses like we educate doctors, then we have different goal. So we accept the students of nursing, just like medicine, like everybody. They are the same class. They sit with the same room, with the same professor. They teach them physics, chemistry, etc. Second year, they are with the medical only to teach them anatomy, physiology, etc. They get their baccalaureate, they get their master, they get their PhD. So what we are trying to say, doctors here, nurses here, man here, woman here. In the United Kingdom, it was like here. In the United States of America, just they are like that. What we are saying, they are sharers. It is a share. Man and woman, they are shareholders in bringing up the child. He is not the boss, she is not the maid. They are both responsible. The doctor and the nurse, both sharing the responsibility of looking after the patient. Because the doctor sees the patient maybe half an hour or 10 minutes, while the nurse is with him all the time. The same thing with mother, with the child, and the father who just see his children for a while. So if we change this system, it's a different thing. So medicine is a profession, nursing is a profession, manhood is a profession, womanhood is a profession. No profession is superior or inferior to the other. So it should not be struggle, it should not be wrestling, it should be sharing together to the far end. I'm not going to, I have got my paper distributed so you can read it, and I hope that I took too much of your time, and I hope I was useful in my talk. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Majali.
Thank you, President. I want first to also greet our Minister for Foreign Affairs of India and thank her to be with us today, Mrs. Governor. And of course also I want to greet all the staff of Art of Living, because if we are here, most of us, it's also due to the fact that we are sharing a lot of debate and interest with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, and I want to say to them that it is really a valuable opportunity that you gave to us as Europeans. Okay, Professor Majali has made a lot of what I want to say, so it's done. I will focus on Europe and India. And the reason why we are here is because, well, there is always, from a long time ago, a big relation between Europe and India. It's, of course, also due to this period of colonization, so it's not necessarily positive. But when I speak about Europe, I have to mention it is institutional Europe. Of course, inside the 28 countries, you have some bigger countries than others. But the démarche, when we speak about Europe, is about institutions going together with 28 countries. Built from 6 countries only after the war, 45, and going to, I will not explain all the big steps. The biggest one has been the disappearance of USSR and the opening to new members in a large scale. So it changed a lot of this, what we call Europe. And of course, we have the same feeling as Europeans, and you can have when you are in India, is that most of our interests are inside our own European connections and the way we have to face election. There is always one election somewhere in these 28 countries. This changes a lot of the equilibrium, like here. And sometimes it is the left who is winning, sometimes the right. And then you have a body that is a common body, but not so strong that the parliament in India, who is the European Parliament, with reflect, but with some years of difference, reflect the reality of the change in Europe. And at this period, this institution, the European Council, the European Commission, and the European Parliament, they all in a new period of time, 5 years, with a parliament completely re-elected, together in all the countries, with a new commission. At the head, we have the ex-prime minister of Luxembourg, a very specialist in taxation and, well, how to avoid taxation. And now he's supposed to be one of the policemen for taxation. So it will be a very interesting period for us, how the prime minister from Luxembourg will explain how to respect taxation will be, for us, a huge moment of joke. And the other thing is that the Council of Ministers is now chaired by, for the first time, by an ex-prime minister of one of the countries coming from USSR, which is Poland. And Mr. Tusk will be at the head, is de facto now in charge of following Europe, future, and especially the European Council. So this is new for all Europeans. We knew something about Poland and about the sort of very strong feelings they have against Russia Federation. So it's not for us as old European side, I'm coming from Belgium, we are not so quiet about going in a way that is so negative towards Russia Federation. But okay, it was an incredible equilibrium to find a president of the European Parliament, German socialist. Mrs. Merkel was not happy. So she said, I need a Christian Democrat. He must be the head of the Commission, Mr. Juncker. And then the British say, oh, we have nobody inside. We want somebody. And it is the Polish prime minister. So this is the sort of equilibrium we have to do. And of course, could you imagine that when we arrive in India, we are very proud to be with you and to share all that, we discover that the equilibrium here in one country is also the sort of incredible equilibrium between so many different forces, so many convictions, so many power games at different levels. And could you imagine that it is a new government in India, and we are looking how can we find something that is really positive for both sides, for us and for India. And that's the exercise that we do. And there is a lot of things. Of course, we need growth, and Europe needs growth from all partners. And the relation with India and European Commission and the 28 countries is a positive one, but a slow one for years. So there is a big hope that the new period with a new government will open dynamism in the relation. We fully understand that the prime minister has to go to US or has to go to Russia, has to go to big power, but it will be very good also to develop a presence in Europe, because Europe understands really better than any other part of the world what does it mean to be at the head of a country like this one, with all the diversity of a country who has also to build all aspects of common life together, like we have to do. And even in Europe, it's more difficult because the state as such, if you think about France, France is a power. They have a lot of connection all over the world. Britain, of course, is also a power, Germany. So we are living in a way, very disequilibrated forces. And even it's going. We're trying to have common policies. And one of them is the agriculture. As you know, it was the basis of the construction. After that, well, we can say we have spent a lot of money in agriculture, but it is needed here too. So imagine something constructive. We have to, and we have succeeded in diminishing the population in agriculture and making them really beginning to be richer. This is costly. It was a sort of Mrs. Thatcher enemy, the agricultural policy, because it cost a lot. But it is a success. So we are feeding the population, we are able to feed outside of Europe, and de facto, we are now able to open the market to the international market price. So that's part of the policy we can share together, how to diminish agricultural population without making them poor and having a good result. But do we have value to share? And that's not easy to answer. Because, of course, you are here, it is normal speaking about religion. For me, religion can be a dangerous way if we are speaking about shared values. Not because of religion as such, but because of the game of power that some head or some men inside the religious power could play each against some others. Think especially about Sunni and Shia now, but it can be something completely different. It can be Orthodox against Christian in another country. It's not only inside one of the religions that you could have that. So when I speak about shared value, I will not propose religion. It is too dangerous. And religion are different, really. And of course, to be the most powerful religious man, you need to explain that it is better to follow you than the other one. So that's not. I have a long way in terms of women movement in Belgium and Europe. And I have think about that for a long time. I think one common point where we can build a lot is childhood. I have a list of 5 points. Childhood is a shared value all over the world. Respect children. So it means, you believe it is theoretical? No. It means protect children from internet, pedophile, internet, bad connections. This can be done with specialists. We do that at European level with American. We should do that with Indian. And it is not open now. So, but here you have abuse of children on internet. And the family doesn't even know about it. So this is part of something that has to be done. Interior Ministry may propose this sort of collaboration. Economic success is also looked at in any country. But it needs demographic control. And it is difficult. Take the example of China. We have had, if you read the main books about China, very few are mentioning the decision that China has taken to have only one child per family. Of course, you cannot do that in a democratic country. Of course, you cannot. You can in a communist country. But if you go to 1995, China was by UN considered, I was rapporteur in Geneva about the extreme poverty, China was considered as a country going to extreme poverty. And the decision of one child per family has really made possible the actual growth of China. It's not so much business, finance, and bankers. No, no. It is demography. Especially in economy where you have agriculture as a basic for the population. Because in agriculture, when you have one family, you have 5 children, then you can be sure that the 5 children, each of them, it depends on the heritage law, will be poorer than the father. And when you come to the second generation, it's completely poor. So that's why this is a key for any country to think about and to discuss. But then it's, of course, equality. I will take one point of Lord Desai. It's what he said about garbage. Garbage is only one aspect. Health is also a common value. For all human beings now, it is more and more the diffusion of the knowledge about health and the practice that are bad. Here in Goa, you can just look how it is something that has to be changed quickly, like he said, because it is just a knowledge of hygienic, of the way of living cannot afford to live near garbage like that. It is really bad for the health. And now everybody knows that. So India has to share. We have made it in Europe. Helmet is, of course, obligatory. And it is an immediate decrease of all health accident, well, say, really difficult to save. Then extremism. Don't believe you are the only one to face extremism because you are near a Muslim country. We have extremism in our country, and we want to get rid also of that attitude. We're not accusing religion, one religion especially, but we need to have joint analysis against extremisms. And we have to share how to fight radicalization in young population. Mr. Majali mentioned an incident yesterday, but this is typical of how to radicalize a young population. It is to make them feel completely insulted. And then, after that, you can be sure they will go to the wrong side of this appeal for doing jihad and doing all bad things that we see every day. And then, let me finish with the last value. It is secularism. For us, it's what's not easy also, because one religion in Europe were asking to be at the basis of European Union. It was Catholic Roman Church. It's not true, really. And it was not true, so we have to, politely, but to fight. It is not the case. We have to push a way of managing states that is a secular way. And there is a specific, maybe work that we can do together, is a comparison of secularism. How you see secularism in India, in Britain, in Germany, in France. It's completely different. But it is based on the same idea that the people has to stay together, live together, enjoy to be together, and that may be the most difficult.
Distinguished Madam Minister, Mr. Minister, Madam Governor, Excellencies, dear fellow speakers, dear friends from Art of Living, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to present some general thoughts related to the subject first. Many speakers spoke about globalization, identity, nation, and culture. Globalization doesn't mean an end for the concept neither of the nation nor of the identity. Globalization simply gives another framework, another context, new opportunities and threats as well. I understand that globalization demands more clear attitude towards our identities. In case of more windy environment, a tree has to be deeper rooted. This is what our cultures are facing. We can't be more successful or more global with less sense for identity. If we are more and more attentive to the biodiversity, we should be at least equally attentive to the spiritual and cultural diversity. I don't foresee a global melting pot, but more pleasure for a harmonious cultural diversity. I think I have to add an Indian element here. I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Modi for appointing Minister for Yoga in his government. That made me think how it would be if our democracies would get deeper breath, more clear mind, our actions would be better coordinated and more seva-oriented. They would be definitely more healthy because the new ministry is competent for Ayurveda as well. Let me say a few words about religion. Religions are first of all people, not institutions, not doctrines, people who live with their beliefs, values and principles all the week, not just on Sundays. I have nothing against secularism, but I don't like secularism as anti-religion. As far as relation between political and religious institutions are concerned, I think Europe, after centuries of problems, has found a principled and very useful solution. Cooperation in serving to the same people, yes. Co-decision, no. I think I can't tell this in more short way. Another point, economic growth and social aspect. It would be good, first, if the political leaders would distinguish between such terms as development, growth, and expansion are. These are not synonyms. We have to redefine the term of growth. Economic growth can be sustainable, I will use your term, if it is dharma-based. In the EU, we have implemented the concept of social market economy. This means economic liberalism with social responsibility. Profit is not a value or an objective on its own. Let us ask ourselves, what does it mean to be democratic in the 21st century in a very basic terms? To be democratic means, first of all, to respect human dignity. I'm pleased that the very first article of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union is very clear about that. I quote, "The human dignity is inviolable. It must be respected and protected." As far as dignity is concerned, we are all born equal. Nobody's dignity is higher or stronger than the dignity of somebody else. Here the essential question arises, how to live together with differences. Each country and each society has to answer it on its own. History has been teaching us different answers to that question. Those political or ideological concepts which intended to make world better by eliminating those who were thinking in a different way than the governing or mainstream ended with violation of human rights, injustice, political polarization, and wars. We can't make this world better by violence. We should learn lessons from 20th century and centuries before. Democracy has been considered the best way to do political things together. It has been a system in which the winner does not take everything and the loser does not lose everything. It has been a system which has been allowing changes. To respect the dignity of the others means politically to be open for a dialogue, to be ready to agree on compromises, to work for peace. At the Millennium Conferences, everybody spoke for peace and cooperation. Now we are facing war in Europe again. A war in Ukraine is destroying what we have been constructing for decades. That war reflects neither democratic maturity of the political leadership nor the will of the people. People have always wished to live in peace. Democracy is not just about majorities and minorities. It's just about the power, about position and opposition. It should be a tool used to get the best solutions. Those elected should work for the common good, not for the narrow interests. This is the only way towards sustainable societies and sustainable development. Democracies at the beginning of the 21st century are facing global challenges and they experience growing interdependence. It has been more and more clear that we can't play the same game with different types of cards. There is a need for new common denominators. Global governing is one of them. Global governing is possible only under the prerequisite that we share some values, some principles and rules. New challenges demand new ideas, but there is no need to be innovative in every respect. Yes, for new ideas, new faces, new solutions, but let respect universal principles and ethnic values as well. There is no need to innovate Dharma, for example. Democracy in 21st century should be oriented towards partnerships, not toward alliances. Alliances have been always meant to attack or to defend somebody. Could we be that ambitious to eradicate the concept of the enemy from international relations and to develop global partnership? There are 85 years more ahead of us to improve democracy locally, regionally, nationally, and globally in this century. To improve democracy means to put the man at the center. I think what I have said could be considered as a Christmas wish. But let's think about impossible. If Slovenians, one of less numerous nations in Central Europe, did not dream about their freedom, independence, and democracy, I wouldn't share my concerns and ambitions about democracy here today. In the past, our identity and integrity were threatened. Since 2004, our identity is recognized and welcomed. We are pleased to share the concept of living unity in diversity with other free nations in the European Union. Our ambition should be to make this century a century of peace, of stability in a harmonious and not conflictual diversity. We shall welcome the different cultures to contribute their best to the new quality of global conviviality and cooperation. Let's invite Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, whichever spirit or tradition to enrich integral human development with the best they can offer. Let's share and not impose. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I have never had such intense preparations for Christmas as in these days. As far as my conclusion is concerned, in fact, it was presented already by the very first speaker of this conference, the Honorable Congresswoman Mrs. Tulsi Gabbard. She said, I quote, "I decided to run for Congress in order to serve my fellow citizens. I didn't hear many politicians to be so clear and explicit. This is the answer to the question about the democracy in 21st century. We are not elected to govern the others. The man we will celebrate in the coming days said, those who wish to be the first should be the first to serve the others. Pope Francis added, politics should be the highest expression of love to the neighbor. Few more sentences. To lead by serving has been quite a challenging concept. It generally means to change the political paradigm. To serve means to put the other at the center, not an ideology, not an interest, but a human being with her or his full integrity and identity. Let's change the political paradigm from the conflictual to harmonious diversity. Let's share and not impose. It is not that important how numerous different nations are, but what and how we are doing together. Thank you for sharing these ideas. I'm thankful to India Foundation for this Christmas present. In that sense, I wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good luck, India.
Madam Minister, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I will not present myself, saving the time. You may look some information somewhere. I'm from Lithuania, very short. I'm the musician. Accidentally, I served 25 years as a parliamentarian. First in Soviet Union, facing the agony of empire, then in independent Lithuania, and last 10 years in European Parliament until this summer. Let me remind and quote just several lines from what I had loved in past while being young, and do love until now. That is the wisdom of heart of great Indian Rabindranath Tagore. Where is the market for you, my song? Is it there, where the learned muddle the summer breeze with their snuff? Where men endlessly dispute whether the oil depends upon the cask or the cask upon the oil, where yellow manuscripts frown upon the fleet-footed frivolousness of life, my song cries out, ah, no, no, no. Where is the market for you, my song? Is it there where the man of fortune grows enormous in pride and flesh in his marble palace, with his books on the shelves, dressed in leather, painted in gold, dusted by slaves, the virgin page dedicated to the god obscure? My song gasped and said, ah, no, no, no. Surprisingly, even poets should think then about the market, at least as a metaphor, but considering eventual dictatorship of markets already approaching to occupy and spoil the human life entirely. The terrible world wars and bloody totalitarian regimes have passed, leaving enormous devastation, also spiritual one, behind them. No victor came requesting the compensation for German, Russian, and Japanese losses in their soul. Nobody spoke in favor of those affected by their own evil inhumanism. Everybody was looking then for the next war, and the new poorest captives waited for it as well, like in my enslaved Lithuania. Nevertheless, there came a moment of liberation of captive nations from communism at the end of the 80s. After the earlier Prague Spring and Polish solidarity, both brutally stopped but not destroyed without a trace, that last one came when finally crumbling and quasi-reformist by necessity Soviet Union offered some self-standing opportunity for its direct prisoners. Then the Baltic Singing Revolution, non-violent, along with teaching of Mahatma Gandhi, went on the stage. It opened windows and gates for all captive Soviet nations, including the poor, with all its terrifying nukes, communist Russia. Democracy elite wanted here to build up Russia as democracy also, but failed with that already in several years to revengist dictatorial forces. The Baltics did not fail. My country, Lithuania, was the first on that stage of restoration of democracy and national sovereignty from the failing USSR. Our people went singing anthems of liberty and love. Thus, the prophetic Rabindranath should not ask anymore, where is the market for you, my song? It was there, at the Baltic shores, and song came victorious over the tanks. In less than 2 years, the very Soviet Union ceased to exist. Exactly, that was the wonderfully right formula, ceased to exist, adopted in Belarus by leaders of Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine 23 years ago. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia were at this moment already out and in, some were better, fully exceeded with United Nations and on the track to European community. What further, especially for the rest, including later Ukraine, but also for the West, the great chance offered by heavens was lost. in the 90s. You see, at the end, we have now the new European war offered by Russia in a non-subordinated Ukraine. How it all could develop so badly, and due to what? The roots, while discovered, look extremely deep and noticed everywhere. The fleet-footed frivolousness of materialist consumerism became enthroned in Europe, which in turn missed the chance of spiritual renewal and revival. The EU went simply enlarging in size and building itself structurally, like monetary union, Schengen system, etc., but wrongly fit about its own fleet or flat-footed welfare. That very welfare was proudly counted in numbers of profits, national and supranational incomes, not in brotherly spirituality. Lord Desai have said here yesterday, everything is dirty, calling likely for general cleaning of everything. Truly, the main problem of developed and developing world looks like totalitarianism of garbage. What to do when our souls, the main natural resource, is also full of garbage, and societies are happily dirty? To add the oceans, we are turned into collectors of the world trash. It reminds me of my personal experience some 36 years ago when I visited relatives in Australia and was surprised by posters at roadsides, "Don't rubbish Australia." I failed in my efforts to repeat it like "Don't rubbish Lithuania," even in forthcoming times of our spiritual recovery. But maybe today it is the last time for urgent global call. Don't rubbish your home, you Homo sapiens. India should take a lead here, for itself actually, but for the world as well, including well-established deadly smog in Beijing. Who is listening to protests of nature? When the concept of spirituality is again underlined along with great Indian tradition, one could ask politely, is that expected spirituality compatible with brutality or even bestiality? Take the last measure of human achievements, when the greatest enemy of insane fundamentalism appears to be the little girl with a book in her hands. Why Malala from Pakistan is not here? The man of fortune, again reminding Rabindranath Tagore, went a long way to Tipperary, growing in pride and flesh, thus losing the true human sense of living. He lost that one for himself. And then what to say about those left aside of any fortune? On course of that alleged progress, with an increasing sense of senselessness, democracy was losing as well. The war and insane fanaticism increased their chance for winning. Russia does appear here as, for today, the most negatively affecting the whole international environment. out with principles of United Nations. Your parliamentary democracy is not for us. Human rights, etc., is that your old colonialism? Quotations from Putin and Medvedev. Even here in Goa, we could hear that democracy in or for India is or must be different. Hello with Putin. That is a little bit about Putinist Russia. Big in territory, but not in spirit. Badly affected by complex of inferiority. This unproductive country goes stepping on the spot and stays, unfortunately, unable to cope with its post-colonial and post-imperial syndromes. That may end badly for everybody. Just imagine the abused UK striving to regain India. But there was also a topic about democracy in the 21st century. Taking that, I would need to touch also the non-democracies. What is the role of them in that very 21st century? Now we consider plain efforts to use the good name of India's democracy to mix the lines and legitimize dictatorial non-democracies in one BRICS group of outwashed values. That's never just a business, just an accidental trade group out of political principles. Democracies are not initiating the expansionist wars, as non-democracies do, one of them even in Europe. Therefore, let me, to avoid further elaboration on democracies versus anti-democracies. But speaking here and now, I must turn to India. Finally, yes? This great country may serve humankind once again. Maybe now most essentially, as we see the matters around. I still hope that political education everywhere should include the wisdom of heart. Let more and more women come to power, what we are seeing here today. Until everything is about interests, and interest has no heart, the matters will not improve under this promising government of Mr. Modi. That would enable India to become truly great in spirit. The legend says that once one of the three kings of mind who went blundering as followers of enormously bright star supernova, what astronomers are debating about, simply to welcome the child. And that one of travelers used the special vehicle of one elephant power. He came from India, maybe with a message from the times of King Ashoka. We need those messengers between East and West today, even more as then. Thanks for your kind attention.
So, Madam Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the topic democracy in the 21st century, of course, is a basis for having it like this because the European Union and India definitely are the two biggest democracies in the world. And whether democracy will survive in this century is a big question. There are a lot of people who make the prognosis that liberal democracy is in decline and that you have more non-democratic governance systems, and they emerge already. We could see that in many countries there are signs of illiberalism where they attack cornerstones of what we call democracy. And therefore I think India, Europe and the others, we have to defend this model of governance and this, let's say, good model of governance, because when you look at the UN Development Index, you will discover that democracies are on the top. They are as well developing because people are involved, you have a participatory openness, and that gives a lot of empowerment and a lot of as well chances. Now, authoritarian leaders, they hit first on the media. And in fact, free media is the best you could have in a democracy. And there was the worry that the media in India talk too bad about India. So if you look in the papers, it's full of problems and criticism. But I can tell you the media in Germany and Britain, in democracies, they talk about problems and they like to talk about what is not working. And let's defend the freedom of the media. That is a key essence of democracy. Don't allow rulers that they bring in laws or interventions that the media cannot report as they want. I think democracies are strong enough to survive criticism and have a sort of dialogue with what doesn't work and what works. The next thing is the independence of the judicial system. Judges are so important. And you could see whether it's Erdogan in Turkey, whether it's Putin in Russia, or even in the European Union, Orban, who won a two-thirds majority in Hungary, they immediately go on the media and the judges, the judicial system. You need an independent, fair judiciary in the country, otherwise you have not really democracy. I was part of the Convention on the Charter of Fundamental Rights in the European Union that we have developed 10 years ago, a catalogue of 50 freedoms and rights that our people can enjoy. And the president of that convention was saying, look, let it write so simple that you could really read it in school classes. Everybody could understand it. No article should have more than 3 lines. But then we came to Article 48 on good governance, and we discovered that at the end we had 5 lines. Because that is probably in democracies a big problem, how to have good governance system, especially when you have a federal system like in India, and we have it in Germany, we have it in the European Union in a way, how to establish a system that nevertheless the citizens are satisfied that there is an output, that you can decide that things are functioning, and good governance is as well part of good democracy. Otherwise, people get impatient and they start to look for leaders that just decide dictatorial and no more by a deliberate process. Now, to make it short, we have to preserve democracy on our national level. But the question is, what is with democracy on the international level? We all speak about a globalized world, and we have chaotic systems in world governance. Look on the UN. It is not bearable that the Security Council is composed of 5 countries, 4 of them coming out of the Second World War plus China, having nobody from Africa, no country from Latin America, not having India on board. It is, in my opinion, unbearable and undemocratic. Look on the subsystems of the UN, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, others, they are totally unbalanced. They reflect no more today's world, and as well not tomorrow's world. Look on the General Assembly of the United Nations. What a miserable body. I have the chance to be there various times. A miserable body with a low outcome, mainly sorry for that, by diplomats, not even by politicians, that have built up a system of stagnation and of frustration. And there is an idea that we refresh the United Nations system by a parliamentary assembly. Let's build in the citizens' representatives in the global system. They're not existing. You have the governments, the General Assembly. Since the Millennium Summit, you have even the civil society with an assembly. But you have not the parliaments on the global level. They are not existing. And it would be a good idea, and I know it has a lot of support from India and other countries, to have a parliamentary assembly on the UN level. And I think it could have a good role, because not only government but as well opposition people would be coming together to debate global goods and global problems from the atmosphere that belongs to all of us, to, of course, the disorder in the financial system in the world, or the new internet world with a lot of cybercrime or data protection. So there are a lot of questions that we have to solve unanimously. Global problems need global solutions, and it needs global democracy. Otherwise, it would not be accepted. Now I will finish, because I admire your patience. We have in the European Parliament a good practice that you should speak only 1 or 2 minutes, and only the group leaders get 5 minutes. So we all exceeded our 5 minutes time, but you have been great patience. And I'm very thankful myself. I'm happy that I was here on the invitation of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. I got a lot of good ideas that I bring home. And I think India ideas should continue next year. It's a great event and great ideas that we could take from these 2 days. And I wish you happy Christmas and a good New Year, a good future, great India, a good future. Thank you.
So thank you very much for our wonderful panel. They did share a lot of wisdom with us. So unfortunately, we ran out of time to do the Q&A, but I'm sure they'll be here for a little while longer. And if you want to engage them with any questions or any comments you might have, I'm sure you'll get an opportunity to do so.